恭请大德圣听，为此法会，即一切众生，请转妙法论，教导我们如何了生脱世离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth. Pastor, you need to unmute. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Let's try. Okay, let's do it again. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto sucheto ye alahati san miao san puto che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Rebel Master, and all good knowing advisors, welcome back to this is class number 68. We had a break last week because of the 3000 Buddha bowing repentance held in our monastery in Kuala Lumpur. So last week, yes, so this is class 68. Now invite everyone to join me in reciting Medicine Master Buddha's name 7 times. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha. 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 Medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one. Medicine master does come one. Medicine master does come one. All right, let's get today's slideshow in place. So 2 weeks ago, what we did was we went through the role of thought versus emotion and how important they are in in determining where we get reborn, our future rebirth. So what we did was through the lens of the Shurangama Sutra, we looked at how if you have, we'll run through that again today in a very abbreviated form, but we looked at how if you're full of emotion, you fall into the unrelenting hells. And then if you have slightly less, just slightly less, you fall into the regular hells. And then how they progress from hells to the hungry ghosts, and then to animals, the humans, and then eventually stopped at the causes and conditions for being reborn as a spiritual Dharma protector. So that was a overall view of birth in the six destinies, although no, the five destinies, because there's the sixth one, which is the true heavenly realm, which we have not gone into yet. We're going to cover that separately in a class. And then, so today, what we're going to do is we'll go into detail of the hell and the hungry ghost realm. Why are we doing that? In my, as I was preparing for the classes for the past few weeks, I realized that there are a lot of behaviors that we take for granted in our current time. But the stories in the sutras that the Buddha taught us, a lot of these common behaviors that we take, like backbiting or lying, are actual seeds that when you create those seeds, or when you plant those seeds, they create the conditions to be born either as a hungry ghost or in the hell realm. So I think it's worthwhile going through them, so that we can, so that when we identify ourselves in those situations making those same mistakes, we can rectify and purify our karma, so we don't share the same fate as the people in the stories that we're going to find out. Okay, so where are we in the sutra? We're still in the same part of the sutra that begins in this way, where the Buddha explains to Manjushri about how people who hold the precepts, how if their resolve may not be firm enough to be, okay, first, if they want to be born in the Pure Land, what happens? You get 8 bodhisattvas who, upon your death, they greet you and they remind you of your vows to be born in the Pure Land, and then they show you the way. So it's really nice. It's like you fly to a different country in the airport, and when you get through immigration and you pass through the gates, and at the arrival hall, you have people greeting you, or if you have no friends there, there's someone holding a, you know how a professional chauffeur or driver will, sometimes the hotel will send the driver to pick you up, and he holds, he in the past he would write your name on a piece of paper and hold it up, but now I think they use tablets like iPad and an iPad or something, and then your name is there, and then you don't have to worry about anything, and then he will drive you straight to the hotel, something like that. You get the 8 bodhisattvas who bring you to the Pure Land. There's nothing to worry about at all. So these were the slides that we have been going through in our class, in our last few classes, and this is the one where the sutra lists down the 8 bodhisattvas who will guide you to the Pure Land. And then the Buddha says that if your resolve is not firm enough, if you see someone, but instead of going to the Pure Land, you want to have some fun first, Your habits still bring you towards the you still want enjoy your blessings, then you get born in the heavens. But because of your practice, it's not a regular. You're not born with like other heaven goers where they only exhaust their blessings. You are still prone to practice. So your when your heavenly rebirth, when your heavenly life ends, you do not fall. And if you are reborn as a human, it talks about, the Buddha explains how that you have a very fortunate rebirth. Okay. And then we looked at the lifespans, and we looked at how long an eon is. Eon is the length of time it will take if every 100, okay, if you have a big mountain made of iron, and every 100 years with someone comes and rubs, very lightly touches the iron mountain with a very fine piece of cloth, something like silk, very very smooth. The Buddha says that an eon, he says, after the mountain has been worn away by the rubbing of the very very fine soft cloth every 100 years, an eon would still not have passed. So it's beyond human conception. And then we looked at how um, being reborn in the six desire heavens is nothing compared to the first dhyana heaven if you get there through your meditation, that the lifespan. Okay, we won't go back into that. This is just a recap of what we did in the last class, and then we look at how somewhat physically, but how people have tried to make sense of the Dharma world that we are living in, the Dharma universe. We have the hell realm that's arranged at the bottom, and then above that is where we are together with the animals and the hungry ghosts and the asuras, and how above us are all the heavens. All right. So again, why we're going through all this is to understand cause and effect. We want to establish right view and right understanding in ourselves. So by going through how emotions and logic or thought, as the Buddha put it, influence our rebirth, that also tells us about how our practice should transform us. So our practice, when we hold the precepts, when we recite the mantras, when we do a bowing, it should make us less emotional or prone to falling after our emotions, but make us rely on the wisdom of the Dharma instead, as we turn from the unwholesome into the wholesome. So less anger, less greed, less ignorance. Okay, those are the markers for ourselves to see if our practice is working out. Okay, all right. So continuing very, very quickly, the unrelenting hells. This is a repeat. These slides are a repeat. So I won't go through the slide. I will just go through the main point, which is how do you get into the unrelenting hells? The Buddha says when we are ruled entirely by emotion. So people who normally get there, they say commit the 5 unnatural crimes. That means the intentional killing of one's parents, one's father, one's mother, killing an arhat or enlightened being, shedding the Buddha's blood, or damaging works that are related to the Buddha, like burning sutras or breaking images of the Buddha, and creating a schism or dividing up the Sangha. That means you make the monks and nuns fight within themselves, among themselves, and divide the Sangha up. So you can kind of imagine someone who has the ability to do something like that. It reflects a personality that is full of emotion, someone who's not afraid of the repercussions or is totally ignorant of the repercussions of their actions. And then we also looked at how the Buddha says emotion is 90% of the mental activity, and pure tatso pure thoughts are only 10%. That means only 10% of the time you do things in a that follows wisdom. The rest of the time you just follow your heart or your emotion. You go into the intermittent hells. Okay. So now let's look at what Shufu has to say about what the hell realm is. And this is from the 10 Dharma realms. All right. Today is kind of interesting because we have Shufu's perspective from the 10 Dharma realms. And then we also have from the Shurangama Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha explaining all the different um, components of the hells, and then from the hell realm, how they are reborn into the ghost realm, and the differences in the ghost realm, what they do, or rather the causes and conditions for them to be born, that awaits them in the ghost realm after their experience in the hell realm. Okay. So this is what Shifu says. It says the hells are a miserable place. Anyone who would like to take a vacation in the hells can do so anytime at all. I can guarantee that you get there right away. How? It is said, depressed and melancholy, you roam through the hells. Happy and smiling, you enjoy eternal youth. Weeping and woe make a small dark room in the hells. So this is from the 10 Dharma realms, where Shufu, what Shufu does is, he doesn't separate out the 10 Dharma realms into distinct forms of existence that are separated only by birth and death. What Shufu has done is he says that your very next thought determines where you are within the 10 Dharma realms. So that's really important because in our existence, sometimes when we go through a lot of afflictions, it feels like we are in the hells because all we have in our minds are suffering. So if we do not know how to deal with our minds, and what we can do is we can create a hell environment in our present moment. And we have to be really careful of that, because those present moments that we are creating that are full of afflictions, or full of anger, jealousy, hatred, emotions like that, we are also planting cause. Not only are we creating our own suffering in the present moment, but we are also planting the seeds for a future hell rebirth. Okay, so not only do we suffer now, but we create a lot of potential opportunities for suffering in the future as well. Okay, so Shifu says, he says, once you become worried, you travel to the hells to take a vacation. If you get worried, you plant a seed for the hells. If you smile, you plant a seed for the heavens. It is said from ancient times, the divine immortals have had no other practice than merely being happy and not being sad. If you become depressed, you take a trip to the hells. If you smile all the time, you look youthful even if you are old. If you cry, you give yourself a lot of vexation. This is why in many religions they frown upon, or they discourage, or they tell you that taking your own life is a big no-no. It's because that in order to take your own life, your state of mind at that time is full of emotion, and if you end your so-called consciousness as a human in that state, what happens is that confusion follows you into your next rebirth, and it creates your new existence within that frame of mind. So your suffering doesn't end. You just create the conditions for your suffering to keep going on and on in a very, very confused state. Sometimes they say you keep on reliving all the experiences that bring you up to that point where you take your life. It's just a state of confusion over and over again. And we'll look into that when we check out the stories about when they are born as hungry ghosts or in the ghostly realm. Okay, Chufu says, in general, there's no happiness in the hells. They are full of suffering and distress. Unlike jails built to hold criminals, the hells haven't any doors. However, if you are due to go to hell, when you arrive, it is just as if a door opened, because you find yourself worming and boring in where there was no entrance. It says, why do you go to the hells? Ignorance and afflictions make you stupid and confused. So you create bad karma and don't do good deeds. When you create bad karma, you fall into the hells to undergo the retribution. There is no end to this cycle once it starts. You receive exact repayment for whatever karma you create, and the retribution is never off by even a hair's breadth. So every unwholesome thing that we do, we have to be really, really careful, because there is no way we can escape that, unless you become a sage and you realize that even karma itself is empty. But until then, you are still bound by the seeds that you have planted. So we have to be very, very careful of that. And like I said, we'll see in the stories. We have some interesting stories. Okay, so what are the causes for rebirth in the hells? This is from Shakyamuni Buddha in the Shurangama Sutra. He says, if you have a habit of sexual desire, he says what happens is this brings you to the hell of iron beds and a copper pillar. Shifu says the copper pillar is a red hot pillar of copper. But in confusion, in the hell beings' confusion, they mistake it for someone they are attracted to. So what they do is they run towards this copper pillar and they embrace the copper pillar. But what happens is they get burned instead. So Shakyamuni Buddha says, Buddhas call these things the fires that arise from craving. And bodhisattvas, because of this, bodhisattvas view sexual desire as something to be avoided, as one would avoid a fiery pit. Bodhisattvas can see desire in that way because they can, when they see desire arising, by looking at the causes of conditions of all living beings, they see that when desire arrives, well, you are just planting the causes for to be reborn in this form of hell. So there's no joy, there's no pleasure in desire at all. It is as if you can see, that cup of liquid is not water but bleach, and you would never drink it because you know that it's going to invite suffering. Just like that, before doing it, you already understand you know the cause, and you can not predict. You know the conditions that will follow the cause. So you would never do anything as ignorant as that. All right. Okay. Second one, habit of craving that leads to scheming or plotting and planning. This will bring you to the freezing hells where it is very, very cold. Okay. And the bodhisattvas see this as a sea of pestilent poisons. As much as you want to avoid being in like a pool of poison or acid that burns you, they avoid craving. And then if you have arrogance or the habit of arrogance, and if it's compounded by feelings of self-superiority, you think you're better than everyone else, that leads to competitiveness, and you get your rebirth is in the hells where there are rivers of blood, poison, ashes, or burning sands, and you are covered by all this. Sometimes you get molten copper poured into your mouth or over your body. Number 4, the habit of hatred. When joined with defiance, when you don't like someone, you usually don't want to listen to that person. So you have hatred that brings forth defiance, and that leads to confrontations. This leads to rebirth where in the hells there is a lot of sharp objects, knives, axes, spears, saws, that sees the person in the hell being pierced, being cut, being dismembered, and all these painful acts. Number 5 is the habit of enticing others, trying to encourage people to do unwholesome things. When you join with a conniving kind of character, it leads to entrapment. And the hell that awaits people like this is a hell that immobilizes, or it there are ropes to bind you or handcuffs, and the person there, the experience there is after you are bound, you get hit by chains or whips or clubs. And then number 6 is if someone has the habit of falsehood, always not being sincere, not being straightforward, telling lies, or being how you say, half lies, scheming. And then when it's joined with deviousness or mischievousness, it leads to insinuations and insults. And what happens is that there's a hell where what you experience is sinking, falling, and drowning. So Shakyamuni Buddha says in this hell, first you feel as if you are being thrown upward very high, as if you're flying through the air, and then you fall. And when you fall, then you hit the ground, and then you die. And so this is the hell that awaits people like this. Number 7 out of 10 is the habit of festering resentment. You can't let go of what you think is injustice or unhappiness done to you. And when you join that with a fondness for nursing hatred that turns into hatred which you don't want to let go, it leads to acts of vengeance. And in the hell that awaits people like this is you are thrown around, you are being seized, and then you are being stabbed and stoned by the hell officials. And then number 8 is the habit of holding wrong views, joined with stubbornness. That means you do not, whenever you encounter wisdom like the Dharma, you are stubborn in your own views. Okay, and when it leads to a mistaken understanding, it leads to mistaken understandings. One of which is thinking that the self is real, mistaking. Shufu says mistaking a thief for a son. The story is you are sleeping at home and a robber enters your home and you think, oh, my son has come home late at night, and you go back to sleep. And the next morning you wake up and all your valuables are gone. That is used to describe how we mistake our current mind, our consciousness, and our body to be ourself, which actually it is not. The 5 skandhas or the 18 realms, the 6 consciousnesses are not us. So that's a wrong view. So what happens when you have this habit of wrong view? Shakyamuni Buddha says that in this hell, you have the experience of being questioned while subjected to devious tricks and high pressure questioning. So the questioning that you receive is very, very skillful. And everything that you have done that you previous in your when you were alive as a human being, you were very clever arguing and covering up and in making other people doubt what they believe in. You try to use language and logic to confuse other people. He says in this hell you cannot escape from that. He says the people who question you are even better, and you have no way to how you say to hide any deviousness. So all your wrong views are brought out into play. So you're constantly being interrogated and exposed. Let's put it this way: you're exposed. Number 9, habit of blaming, and join with a predilection. Also, you can use habit for that, for defamation, and leads to false accusations. You like to put blame on other people or find fault. Finding fault is the same thing. Okay. The hell that awaits people with habits like that is where you feel as if you are being squeezed, you are being pressed, you are being pummeled, you are being strained, and so forth. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not sure how to explain more. Maybe I can find out more in a future class. Number 10, the final one that the Buddha gave us, is the habit of disputatiousness joined to a predilection. How do you pronounce that again? Predilection? Joined with another habit of obfuscation and concealment, leading to vociferous court proceedings. This is related to the part of the Medicine Master Buddha that we have just read, where people like to use the legal system to cause trouble for other people. And Shakyamuni Buddha says the consequence in the hells will be the truth about one's acts being confirmed by evil companions, as if one's karma were illumined in a mirror. You can't hide. Everything is revealed about your true intentions. It says, therefore, when the dust come once or the 10 directions see instances such as this, concealment, they call them shadowy villains. Bodhisattvas view obfuscation to be as burdensome as the task of carrying a high mountain on one's head while walking in the ocean. It means that people who go through this, the experience, you can kind of imagine someone who goes through such great lengths to create trouble for people. Their minds are very fixed or caught up in every moment with all this trouble, all this entanglement that they create. At that moment, they don't see it as suffering. But if you are an outsider and you see them, they're just consumed by all this entanglement that they have. So from the point of view of the bodhisattvas, it is as much suffering as, you say, carrying a high mountain on one's head while walking in the ocean. It's very burdensome. Yeah. But in our confusion, when we are in that state, we don't see it as such. Okay, so now as we are going to progress from the hell realm to the ghost realm, and we'll use, we are still in the Shurangama Sutra, and this is what Shakyamuni Buddha explains to Venerable Ananda. He says, next Ananda, after these beings have passed through eons of fire to pay the debts they incurred for committing these offenses, such offenses as violating and vilifying the precepts and the rules for deportment, violating the Bodhisattva precepts, slandering the Buddha's teachings about nirvana, and all the various offenses, then these beings will become ghosts. Okay. Buddha says, if it was a craving for possessions that led a being to commit offenses, then once the debt incurred for committing those offenses is paid, the being will encounter some object, assume its form, and become a bizarre, shape-shifting ghost. If it was craving for the opposite sex that led a being to commit offenses, then once the debt incurred for those offenses is paid, the being will encounter a wind, assume its attributes, and become a drought ghost. So there are many varieties of ghosts, and the Buddha right now is explaining just in general the different paths that a person or a consciousness will take depending on the different seeds that they have planted. So in this slide, the Buddha talks about craving for possessions, and then if the conditions arise that they encounter an object, assume its form, then it becomes a shape-shifting ghost. It can assume different shapes. And if it's desire for the opposite sex and assume a wind, it becomes a drought ghost. Okay. Let's carry on. It says, if it was a craving to mislead people that led a being to commit offenses, it says the being will encounter an animal, assume its form, and become an animal possessing ghost. It was the cravings and emotions of hatred, then the being will encounter, after paying back its debt in the hells, says the being will encounter a venomous creature, assume its form, and become a hex, poison ghost, a ghost that can has a poison. According to Shufu, these are ghosts that have a poisonous breath. I've I think this is the ghost that Shifu mentions when he says that one should not eat. Um, uh, Let me see under what conditions. Shifu says that after a certain time, one should not eat, because what happens is this ghost, when they hear the sound of utensils, because ghosts in this realm have no food to eat. So when they hear the utensils at night, they go to where the sound is coming from. And when they see people eating and they are unable to eat, then because of the poisonous breath, they can cause people to fall sick. Yeah, that's I only have that story. I don't have the understanding or the explanation or the yeah. Okay, moving on. Says if it was the cravings and emotions of long cherished enmity that led to offenses. Once that debt is paid, the being will encounter some enfeebled creature, assume its attributes, and become a plague ghost. I guess a ghost that spreads diseases. If it was the cravings and emotions of arrogance that led the being to commit offenses, then once that debt is paid, the being will encounter some source of vital energy, assume its attributes, and become a hungry ghost. So in most of the sutras, all the ghosts that we are going through right now is kind of classified under the realm of hungry ghosts. The realm of hungry ghosts is like a general definition for all the various different ghosts. All right. And then the Buddha says if it was a craving to indulge in slander, then once that debt is paid, the being will encounter some source of dark energy, assume its attributes, and become a nightmare ghost. These beings come and these ghosts come to you in your nightmares. If it was a craving to indulge in perverse uses of intelligence that led a being to commit offenses, then this being will encounter some source of intense vital energy, assume its attributes, and become a malicious, shape-shifting ghost. So in this perverse use of intelligence, Shufu, in his commentary, um, he said, although people like this may think that they're really smart, may think that they're really intelligent, from a point of wisdom, they're actually really confused because they don't know what true wisdom is. So these people misuse their intelligence and they just end up harming themselves. The only person they outsmart is themselves. So we'll say sometimes this kind of ghost will appear as an adult, but the head will be growing between its legs. It's a very grotesque form. They can also take the form of a child, but they have only one leg. All right. And then the Buddha says, if it was a craving for selfish advancement that led a being to commit offenses, once the debt is paid, they will encounter someone who has light and will assume the attributes appropriate for becoming an attendant ghost. That's very interesting. Someone who has light is usually someone who has a lot of yang energy. They are usually cultivators, people who practice. They have yang energy, and then I guess this makes the ghost become an attendant ghost. They help out this person. And then the final one is it was a craving to form factions. This is the one that divides people up, that led a being to commit offenses. Once that debt is paid, the being will encounter some human, assume that person's attributes, and become an oracle ghost. Okay, some people in Malaysia might be familiar with this. Shufu says this kind of ghost can possess people and speak through them, saying such things as I am the Buddha, so and so, or I am the Bodhisattva, so and so, and they can predict auspicious and inauspicious events, but they're very, very accurate. Shufu says they can foretell the future. And so Shufu warns that he says this is where you need to be able to distinguish between what is proper and not. Shufu says the proper way to gain the ability to predict the future is to practice within the Dharma and get the wisdom through uh, through the proper way, through the wholesome way. And to rely on a ghost to get all this is not correct. I remember when I was growing up, somewhere in Petaling Jaya, there was this house where there was a woman who was known as being able to channel the spirit of Guanyin. And if you visited, they don't ask for payment. I think it's up to you. And if you had any problems or you just wanted to know what the future had in store for you, you could go and visit her, and she would be able to tell you things that no other people would know. So that's one example of an oracle ghost. I believe in Taiwan, this kind of practices are kind of widespread as well. Yeah. So now we are going to go into hungry ghosts, into the realm of hungry ghosts. And I'm just going to. Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to share, or any ghost stories they want to share? If you have, this might be the time, because I just need to take a quick 1-minute break. All right. Okay. So excuse me. Okay. Before I do that, let me advance to the next slide, and you can read it as well, because this is a slide from last week, so I don't have to go through this again. Okay. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. No one had any ghost stories. I'm surprised with all the Malaysians that we have. Yes. Yes, Miss Wong.
Regarding the oracle ghost, you are saying that they possess a person's body, and
Yes.
why? And then the reason why they want to do that? Basically, they want to help the people, or what?
I think so. I think, okay, let's go back to the slide. All right. Let's go back one slide. If you look at the first one, it encounters someone who has light. So it encounters someone who has a bit of kung fu in their practice, and then they become an attendant ghost. I think in a helpful manner. And then the oracle one, I would assume that it is out of wholesome intentions. I would assume, but I cannot say that it's 100% that way. It's just my personal opinion.
Because I have this, I heard about these situations whereby my relative has a friend who has, I think he has this light, as Pastor is saying, and being must be oracle ghost, being approaching him to use his body to help, and the friend refused because he didn't want to deal with things like this. So every night, the oracle ghost actually come and disturb him, so they cannot sleep well. Eventually, he gave up, and then he, helped. Then the oracle ghost took possession of his body. Every now and then, and people ask for help, he will help them, in that sense. But what I'm saying here is that the oracle ghost actually is sort of forcing that person to do things like this. Yeah? No? That creates karma, isn't it?
I don't know. What kind of karma that creates, I honestly do not know. Yeah. But what I think the point Shufu is trying to say is that first the Buddha explains that these things happen, and the point Shufu is trying to distinguish is that if you really want, for someone who finds that being able to tell the future as a good thing, Shufu says that the right way to do it would be through your own practice, not to rely on an external source. I think that's the point that Shufu is making.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Thank you, Pastor.
So all these things are available to a practitioner if they practice in a wholesome way according to the precepts and the Buddha's teachings. So that's what Shufu is saying. If we walk the path, these things naturally happen. We don't have to rely on external factors to achieve this. Okay? Right.
I think the reason why the guy he was not able to sort of fight back the oracle ghost is simply because he's not a Buddhist. He may have been cultivated previous life and he was like things like that. But because in this life he stopped practicing. So maybe he's not able to walk off the energy and
I don't know, so I'm not going to speculate on that.
but they do help people. They do help people. And you've got any problems, especially dealing with spirit beings and things like that. They actually will advise you, they can see actually and advise you accordingly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Thanks, Ms. Wong. All right, let's move on. Okay, so this slide that you see here, if the emotion is 70%, the arrow shows that where they are born. So Shufu says that beneath the water cycle is fire. And he says volcanoes are a common example that prove that fire can reside beneath the water level. For example, underwater volcanoes. So Shufu says for hungry ghosts, water is harmful for ghosts. And he says this is because of the karma. What we see as water, to them they see as fire. And for gods in the heavenly realm, what we see as water, they see as crystal. So it's a different substance. And then Shufu says that creatures of the sea, like fish, shrimps, oysters, and all these things, they see water as their home, as their palace. Because they live in it, they don't see it. Just like how we live in air, and we just go through air, we just walk around, and we don't. It's not the thing that we think about, like, oh, I'm walking through air. We just take it for granted. So just as how sea creatures take water for granted as their home, their palace, they roam about through the water. We see water as water. For ghosts, they see water as fire. And I think I said this last week. Not last week, 2 weeks ago. One way of understanding how karmic conditions can alter the way we perceive things. I talked about water. When you're thirsty, a glass of water is really nice and refreshing. But if you are sick and you have the worst sore throat that you ever had, that water is going to feel like fire going down your throat. So that's an idea of how when our karmic conditions change, our relationship with the elements can change as well. Okay, in the 10 Dharma realms, Shufu says ghosts are masses of yin energy that have shadow and no form, or form and no shadow. Says perhaps you have seen a dark shadow, but when you look closer, it disappeared. Sometimes you think you see something in the corner of your eye, and then you move your head, but you say, oh, maybe I didn't see anything at all. According to Shufu, not really. He says, or perhaps you've seen what seemed like a person, but which vanished in the blink of an eye. Such phenomena are difficult to understand. Okay. It says there are as many different kinds of ghosts as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. So what we have just gone through from beings that are reborn from the hell realm into the ghostly realm, Shakyamuni Buddha gave us 10, but that's just general 10. Shufu says there are infinitely many kinds of ghosts. Some are affluent and powerful ghosts that reign as kings over the ghost realm. Some ghosts are poverty-stricken and devoid of authority. It is often the poor ghosts who bother people and go about causing trouble. If you want to know how many kinds of ghosts there are, work hard at cultivation, open the 5 eyes and 6 spiritual penetrations, and then you'll know. Okay, so this last sentence is the same as what we talked about before. The proper way, Geshe-fu says, if you really want to see ghosts, the proper way is through practice. What's the improper way? Becoming a ghost yourself, and then finding out, oh, there are so many of us. That's the improper way. You don't want to you don't want to do that. Okay, all right. In the sutras, okay, most descriptions of ghosts, or they usually refer to them as hungry ghosts. They're mostly in a human form. Mostly, that means they have a head, arms, legs, but in a very weird, frightful manner. And then sometimes they have animal characteristics as well. For example, there's a sutta that talks about a snake kind of hungry ghost who has the head of a man but the body of a snake, and then a man's head but pig's body. And Shufu says in this realm of ghosts, it says the worst is the one whose throat is very, very narrow, like a needle, but they have a stomach as big as a drum, because what they do is they just experience hunger all the time. Yeah. You usually ghosts in this realm are unable to harm humans. They are powerless, except for the one with the poisonous breath, apparently. Yeah. And there are many stories in the sutras where the Buddha's disciples, they see this ghost being flying in the air, and they are chased by birds that peck at their flesh, or they have in their bodies, they have hair, but their hair are more like needles or blades, and whenever they move, they just end up cutting themselves. Some of these ghosts are monks and nuns, but they were corrupt in their former lives. Some feed on their own vomit. Some are consumed by, they just want things. They're always looking for things. And then some are always tormented by hunger and thirst. Yeah. Okay, we have some questions. We'll come to the questions towards the end of the class. Shufu further says that ghosts enjoy exploding in a fiery rage when people are not good to them, and even when treated well, they still get angry. They like nothing better than giving people trouble. So, Ms. Yap, you're going to find the answer to your question here. It says, what can a layman do when encountered with a ghost? It says, Shufu says, they give you trouble whether you're good to them or not. There's an old saying, lighting a stick of incense calls forth ghosts. Okay, what does Shufu mean? It says people like incense to pay respects to ghosts. You will find this in, for example, in like other religions, other beliefs, where they pray to tree spirits or things like that. Because before you paid respect to them, they don't bother you. But once you make your acquaintance, the ghosts become a nuisance. What can I pronounce it? Nuisance? Yeah. Make you sick or give you some other trouble. Confucius said, respect the ghosts and spirits, but keep them at a distance. It is wise to pay respect to the ghosts and spirits, but otherwise keep your distance and don't get too close to them. It says ghosts are unclear about results and don't understand their causes. As a result, they can't tell good from bad. Basically, if you plant a good cause, you reap a good fruit. If you plant a bad cause, you reap a bad effect. If you plant melons, you get melons. You plant beans and you get beans. People are supposed to understand that. It says, but not ghosts. So ghosts don't understand that. They plant eggplant and anticipate eating hot peppers, or plant hot peppers and think they will harvest cucumbers. What does that mean? I think that means something like you don't know how to get what you want. Sometimes you want people to like you, but you scold them instead. You want to bring people towards the Dharma, but you yourself are a very, very bad example of what the Dharma is supposed to be. You don't lead by example. So you don't understand cause and effect. You don't have wisdom. And people like that just get more and more frustrated. Okay. Shovel continues by saying, since they have no comprehension of principles, they act recklessly and in confusion. They accumulate a lot of karma every day. Their ignorance and upside downness becomes deeper with each passing month. The more karma they create, the deeper their ignorance gets, and the deeper it gets, the more offenses they commit. So that's transitioning from first what do people do that causes. So what we've done today is we looked at what people do that causes them to fall into the hells, and then from the hell realm, once they paid back their debts, what happens in between for them to be born as ghosts, and in general, what kind of ghosts they can be born, rebirth as. Okay, and now the next one is the animal realm, but we'll keep that for next week, seeing as we are running out of time. Now I have some stories about ghosts, and what they have done to become ghosts. Okay, let me scroll down. There's something called an eater of 5 sons. All right, and I want you to pay very close attention to what they did to be born as a ghost. So there was a monk under Shakyamuni Buddha who saw a ghost and said, "Oh, you're very naked and very ugly, and your body is very, very smelly. And because of that, you're always surrounded by flies." He says, "Who are you?" So the ghost said, "I'm a ghost, sir, and I'm suffering in the world of Yama." In other words, in the realm of the ghost or hungry ghost. He says, "I have done an evil deed as a human and have been reborn in the world of ghosts. My retribution is every morning I give birth to 5 sons, and in the evening another 5 are born. And I eat all of them at night." That means they eat at night. They eat. This ghost eats the 10 children, but I will still be hungry. My heart is burning with hunger so much that it is smoking. I get no water to drink. So the monk asked the ghost, said, "What evil deed have you done with your body, speech, or mind that you have to undergo this retribution where, because of the confusion that the ghost is in, the extreme hunger propels this ghost to consume, to give birth to children and to consume their own children?" So the ghost says, when I was a human, my husband's other wife was about to give birth, and I was extremely jealous of her. With that evil mind, I gave her some medicine that would kill the unborn baby. So the 2-month-old embryo flowed out just like blood. The baby's grandmother became very angry with me and called her relatives. And when I was confronted, I told a terrible lie by saying, if I was the one that killed my baby, if I was the one that killed the baby, I will eat my own sons. Okay, so she was jealous of the husband's other wife, gave her some medicine that caused the unborn baby to be aborted. And when she was confronted, instead of confessing, she lied. And not only did she lie, she said, if I was the one that killed the baby, I will eat my own sons. So her retribution after she died was to be reborn in that state. Okay, let me see. This is a story about Shariputra. Again, the same thing. Shariputra sees a ghost in a very wretched form and asks the ghost what happened. So this ghost says, when I was a human being, it says nobody cared for me. It says none of my relatives, even my father, my mother, taught me how to give alms to monks. Or basically, no one taught this person how to be generous. He says, therefore, I did not give alms, and now I must wander around the world naked and be hungry for 500 years. So this ghost, when the ghost saw Shariputra, he recognized that Shariputra was someone with virtue. He said, please have compassion towards me, O noble monk. Please offer something and share the merits with me. Please release me from this state of misery. So what happened then was Venerable Shariputra offered a handful of rice, a piece of cloth, and a bowl of water to the monks. And then he shared the merits of that virtuous act with this ghost. And instantly, immediately, this female ghost transformed. She became clean. She wasn't smelly anymore. Her body wasn't wretched anymore. She was clothed in very, very fine clothes, kind of like heavenly clothes. And she had food, drink, and clothing. And then she approached Shariputra, who who couldn't recognize her. Shariputra said, "Who are you? With heavenly beauty shining in all directions like a star. Why are you so beautiful?" He says, "What merit have you collected when you were a human to be reborn as such a deva, as a heavenly being?" So this we use the word goddess, explained to Shariputra. He said, "Well, I was a hungry ghost, but out of your compassion, when you saw me in a miserable state, in my naked state, you offered the monks a handful of rice, a piece of cloth, and a bowl of water, and you dedicated the merit to me. As a result of you offering the handful of rice, for 1,000 years, I will be able to eat delicious food whenever I want. As a result of you offering the piece of cloth, now I have as many clothes as I ever need, from all the finest garments. I have, and they all hang. He said, hang in the sky, and I can wear whatever I want, whatever I wish. You want the latest fashion? This ghost can get it. It says, as a result of you, Venerable Shariputra, offering a bowl of water, I now have a beautiful pond with clear and cool water, surrounded by fine sand and filled with fragrant lotuses and lilies floating in the water, and I can bathe in the water whenever I want. It says, thanks to your compassion, Venerable Shariputra, I am now not afraid of anything, and I have now come to worship you and thank you instead. So if you remember, we talked about generosity in one of the classes, maybe like 30 classes ago, and we talked about how when it comes to ghosts in this realm, in the hungry ghost realm, that they are unable to receive offerings directly, and that the only way that they can be the beneficiary is if someone on their behalf offers something to a worthwhile cause, like the triple jewel, like the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and in their hearts, you want to share the merit of the act with the ghost. And then what happens is, because you are doing a good deed with a virtuous, and the beneficiary of the good deed has virtue, this enables the ghost to generate happiness in themselves. And it is this happiness that they generate that allows them to receive the merit of the offering. So you cannot directly offer. For example, in the Ullambana Sutta, Venerable Mahamoggallana realized his mother was born as a hungry ghost and offered his mother food. The mother couldn't eat the food because when she tried, the food became hot coals in the mouth. So the Buddha told Shariputra that the only way to help beings in this realm is you make offerings to the Sangha, and then the collective power of the Sangha, and then you transfer the merit of your act of generosity to the hungry ghost. And then on the hungry ghost side, they have to generate, what is that? What's the word for it? There's a specific word. They have to rejoice. Yes, they have to rejoice in your act of generosity in order for them to receive the merit. If they don't, apparently they don't get the merit. So it's kind of, it actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah. There's another story Venerable Mahamoggallana, came across a ghost as he was walking past a sugar cane field. And this poor ghost was tormented by hunger and thirst, but he couldn't eat any of the sugar cane at all. And in the commentaries, it said that this poor ghost wasn't even aware that he was a ghost. It's just, like sometimes when a person is so tormented by affliction and suffering in a very confused state, you're not even aware of what's going on. Like in a dream, this was the state of the ghost. So Venerable Mahamoggallana had a conversation with this ghost, and Venerable Mahamoggallana explained to the ghost that in this ghost's past life, he was walking down the street eating sugarcane, and a very poor man came up and begged for some sugarcane to eat. And what did this man do eating the sugarcane? He just ignored this person for a long time. He just ignored him. He said finally he gave in, but what he did was in an act full of contempt. That means with no respect at all. He did offer the poor man a piece of sugarcane, but he didn't even turn around. What he did was he just held the sugarcane behind his back for the man to take. It was a very disrespectful act. And because of this, he was now born next to a kind of like trapped in his existence, wanting the sugarcane but being unable to eat it. So Venerable Mahamoggallana, in his compassion, he revealed to the ghost, he said, okay, says the only way you can take a sugarcane now is you can only take it from behind your back. That means if the sugarcane was behind you, you grab hold of it and you break it. That's the only way you can get some. And the ghost tried and realized that, oh yeah, I can get to the sugarcane now, and he was able to fulfill his hunger. So there are a lot of other stories like that highlight the importance of sometimes we do things without too much consideration for the precepts or for the way we behave, and the retribution is very serious indeed. We have time for one more. Okay, this involves the 8 precepts. This was a time. It was, let me see, King Bimbisara. Okay, King Bimbisara was observing the 8 precepts, and he encouraged a lot of people to observe the 8 precepts. So as I think he was walking around, and he met a man, and the man he asked the man, he says, "Are you keeping the 8 precepts?" This man wasn't keeping the 8 precepts, but he felt ashamed. He didn't want the king to know that, oh, he didn't keep the 8 precepts. So he lied. He said, yes, I am keeping the 8 precepts. And then he went to meet his friend, and his friend said, why were you late? And he told his friend, oh, I was late because as I was walking to see you, I met the king, and then he related the story of how he lied to the king about holding the 8 precepts. And then the friend was concerned for him and said, there's still half a day left. So at least, since you lied about keeping the 8 precepts, at least for the remainder of the day, you maintain the 8 precepts. He advised his friend, and his friend agreed. In that same night, this person who lied, it is said that there was a high wind, and the high wind caused the ceiling in his house to collapse and killed him. And after his death, he was born, he said that it is described like this: he was born in the hollow of a mountain as a mentioned hungry ghost. So although he was a hungry ghost, he had a mansion to live in, and this was his reward for holding the 8 precepts for half a day. And not only he had a mansion to live in, but he also had 10,000 servants to serve him, and he enjoyed the same pleasures as a heavenly god. because he only held the 8 precepts for only half a day. Yeah. But because he lied about holding the 8 precepts, every day he had to suffer the retribution of cutting with his own hands. He would have to cut the flesh off his back and eat it. I'm not sure how that happens, but this is the story as told by the Buddha. The Buddha has an amazing collection of ghost stories. If you want to know, this comes from a collection called the Petawattu, Petavatthu. I think there's about maybe collection of 40 over ghost stories. And this ghost was accounted by the Venerable Narada, who was an arhat. So in his conversation with Venerable Narada, he said his advice to Venerable Narada was this. He said, "To my own harm, I acted in the world of the living with slander and lying and with fraud and deception." And he says, because I did not speak the truth and I opposed the good, I turned away from the right to unrighteousness. Says, so does he who becomes a backbiter devour himself, as I today feed upon the flesh from my own back. Says Venerable Narada, you yourself has seen this fact. Compassionate are they who speak appropriate words. Do not slander, do not speak falsely, otherwise they will become backbiters. And this backbiter is not just a metaphor, it's a literal. You end up in this person's case, you end up having to consume the flesh of his own back. Yeah. So I would advise everyone to go find out about this Petawattu, or collection of ghost stories spoken by the Buddha, to understand how sometimes we commit these actions or plant these seeds and don't really think much about it. But we have all these stories to tell us that these people who did that later regretted. Okay, so question from Sue. She says, hungry ghosts don't drink water. During Mengshan, we offer water. Let me see. Mengshan is the Mengshan process, Sue, is a process that I don't fully understand to be able to explain in a way that I will be satisfied. But one of the explanations that has been given to me was a Tibetan monk, Gala Rinpoche, who we know of in Berkeley, and he has our respect. And he has explained that because the Tibetans they study the secret school a lot. He says the true process of Mengshan involves contemplation within emptiness. And within the realm of emptiness, karma doesn't exist. It is because karma only exists within the realm of conditions, causes and conditions. And the realm of emptiness lies beyond that. So what happens is then that's why bodhisattvas can perform miracles, because they are able to manipulate elements as they abide within emptiness. So within emptiness, as you contemplate the 7 grains of rice and the water, they transform into different things. You are able to use the contemplation of emptiness to transform them. How that happens, like I said, I'm unable to explain, but that was an explanation. Given what I know, the explanation makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And also, remember, the only way we can, according to the Buddha, the only way we can benefit hungry ghosts or beings in the ghost realm is not directly, but by performing acts, meritorious acts, and sharing the merit with them. And then they, on their part, have to rejoice in your act for them to receive the benefits. Okay. Miss Yap has a question. What can a layman do when encounter a ghost? And what is your advice if driving at night and encounter one? Um, I think prevention is better than cure. So we have in the sutras, for example, the Earth Source Sutra, and what we're going to cover in the future in the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. In the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra, there's towards the end the 12 Yaksha Generals. The 12 Yaksha Generals, they pledge their allegiance or they pledge their allegiance to the Buddha, and they say that they have instructed all the ghosts under them to protect those who practice. Say protect those who practice, protect places where the sutra is found, things like that. So first, I would say practice. Watch out over your thoughts, speech, and actions. Be very mindful of what we do. We also know about the Shurangama mantra, the Great Compassion mantra that we can recite, or recite the name of the Buddha or Guanyin Bodhisattva. There are so many ways. What else? A few weeks ago in class, we looked at the protection spell given by one of the four kings that reside in the four heavenly king, the heaven of the four kings that we will cover in the future class once we are done with the lower realms that we're going through right now. We also talked about the book of protection spells. What else? I think practice always have okay. For monks, traditionally monks go to the jungle, the forest to practice, and there are so many stories of monks encountering ghosts, spirits. Sometimes they are tested by spirits who have good intentions, but they really scare the monk. Like in Ajahn Mun's biography, he talks about sometimes the spirits turn into a huge tiger, bigger than any tiger you've seen, and just to scare the monk, but in a way to help the monk develop their concentration, because you can't really. It's not good deportment for a monk sitting in meditation to just run away. You know what I mean? If your intention is true, you just sit and you say, if I die, I die. I'm just going to sit and hone my concentration. Something like that. So they come and test you. The monks also encounter poisonous insects, animals, venomous animals like snakes and all that. And basically the only protection that we have, or the only so-called weapon that we have, is loving kindness. And apart from the spells or the mantras that we have. So
sorry to interrupt, Pastor. I have
yes.
one more question just for general knowledge. Does
Yes.
that mean that people who pray on the streets actually should be avoided and not to do so, as what you have said, that it's actually invite them? Is that right to say so?
Okay, first of all, don't go and try to educate people. Or you see other people doing other things, we should not go and educate them unless they ask you. Okay.
No, I mean just for my knowledge, like if
Okay.
you see people praying on the streets, so is that a form of inviting?
I don't know. You have to ask them what they think they're doing first.
Oh.
Just by them doing something, you can't really know what their intention is.
But because just now when you share with us, because the ghost doesn't know what is right and what is wrong, so if you stay away from them, they won't disturb you. But if you start giving jaw sticks, and then it's sort of, that was what you shared during that
I know,
session.
I know. But for someone, when you see someone say like lighting incense by the roadside, you don't really, you're kind of assuming that they're doing that, but you don't know, right? Because intention is in the heart. It comes from the heart. They there could be a lot of reasons. They could be whatever belief they have. You know, you how you say, without just looking at them, you do not really know what they're doing. Let's put it this way: you can't assume that they're doing what you think that they're doing.
Oh,
Do you know
okay.
what I mean? Yeah. For
Yeah,
example,
it could
like
be.
in Singapore recently, where the a man was accused of murdering his two twin sons, and people left uh, offerings. They put like toys at the side, and I remember the news report saying someone bought bubble tea because they thought that the boys might have liked bubble tea. Their intention is very different. You know what I mean? They're not in like trying to invite spirits or anything. They are just
Paying respect.
you could say that, yeah, they feel bad or they just want to have a gesture, or sometimes they do that not even thinking about spirits or anything, but out of they want to show that to the family that people care or something. You know, that's why I say the intention can vary.
Ah,
What we cover
okay.
was just
Got,
one. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I
yeah.
get what you mean, because there is a day where people pray at the streets during the
Yeah, that's
the
different. That's the ghost festival month. Is mainly a
yes.
Taoist practice, but if you understand the origins of the practice, it's from the Ulaanbaatar Sutta. So
So are
as
those inviting or are they not inviting?
next time you see them, you go and ask them. They might give you different answers depending on who you ask. Oh, okay. Don't worry about them. Okay, don't worry about them. Just don't go do it yourself. How about that?
Okay.
As
Yeah. All right.
Buddhists, we sometimes we see other people doing things. We don't have to spend our energy, imagining what they're doing or what they're not doing, or all these things. We just know that if as long as because of Shufu's advice, the Buddha's advice, we know we don't do it. That's good enough. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Then our life becomes less complicated. We just keep our light within and just focus on ourselves. That would be the best way. All right. Okay. Let's transfer merit, because then I have to go for the meal offering downstairs. Let me end this slideshow. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone. We'll see you next week, where we will move from the ghost realm. We'll go to the animal realm, and then we'll go up from there. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you, 法师。
Okay, Amito for everyone.